Donald Trump appeared in New York, called Alvin Bragg's prosecutions a big mistake, said that they're backfiring big time on not only Alvin Bragg, but on the entire partisan onslaught against Trump. People are seeing them for what they are, partisan hack prosecutors, not people in pursuit of justice. But we've got the Alvin Bragg prosecution. This trial is scheduled now for April 15th. We know that we were scheduled to be in court on today, starting with jury selection. But of course, the U.S. Department of Justice dropped a big wheelbarrow full of discovery right on Alvin Bragg's desk. And he said, oh gosh, what am I going to do with all of this? So they had to agree to a bit of a continuance. The question was, how much of a continuance? How far can they push this thing out? Trump and his team, they were asking for 90 days, so that they could kick this into the election. And ultimately, they want to postpone it until after the election because this case is ridiculous. The key star witness is Michael Cohen, a convicted perjurer and somebody who literally is alleged to have committed perjury again in a New York courtroom right next door when they were having him testify in the Tisch prosecution. Okay, a federal judge, we covered this case last week, said that. So he's the star witness, the whole thing's rigged. Anyways, we're going to go through and see what happened today because Trump's team is arguing for a much broader continuance. Alvin Bragg and the government are saying no. Let's see what the judge says. Now, Trump showed up there. We got him and the entourage walking in. You see the media is there and they were covering this all day. He walks in, very short statement from the former president. Clip comes courtesy of C-SPAN.
Thank you very much, everybody. This is a witch hunt. It's a hoax. Thank you.
Boom. Short and sweet from the president. This is a witch hunt. This is a hoax. And truer words couldn't have been spoken. And so he walks into court. Let's pick it up from there. Let's see what the man himself, Matthew Russell Lee, who is on X at Inner City Press, has to say, reporting on this story. He's there in the courtroom. Now, a bunch of hustle and bustle around. People are shuffling papers around, all this stuff. Okay, nobody knows where Trump is. Boom, door pops open. Trump walks in. Oh my gosh, courtroom goes silent. Trump is in the courtroom now at the defense table. He's got a blue suit. Guess what, our friends in the chat? A red tie, which we have an emoji for. Perfect. Still no Judge Juan Merchan, though. Everybody's, hustling around, fiddling on their phones, shuffling court papers. And then all of a sudden, bailiff comes into the courtroom. All rise. Judge Juan Merchan comes in. Everybody stands up. All right, please be seated. All right, finally, Judge Juan showed up. All right, good to see you, Judge. Clerk comes here, says, all right, everybody, this is the time set for this matter. This is the case of people of the state of New York versus Donald Trump. Judge says parties announce Donald Trump for the defense, some, hack prosecutor for Alvin Bragg. There. Okay, thank you. Judge Juan Merchan starts the proceedings. He says, all right, let's start by going over the events that bring us here today. Back on March 8th, just 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump filed a motion seeking to move to discovery sanctions. Because remember, Alvin Bragg said, oh no, we got a big fat load of discovery dropped on our desk from the DOJ. The Department of Justice was already investigating Trump for all of this criminality, so-called. They declined to do it. Why? Because Michael Cohen was the key witness. So DOJ, who is not prosecuting this current case, this is brought by a city prosecutor called Alvin at the Manhattan level. The DOJ, the feds, dropped a big dump right on Alvin's desk. And oh gosh. And Trump says, wait a minute, we got trial like in 2 weeks. So they're asking for sanctions for giving all this discovery out, all of a sudden. So Juan, the judge, says, okay, here we go. Move for discovery and for sanctions. And they say, what's the basis for these sanctions? Trump is saying that they argued that Alvin, the DA, suppressed evidence. And Trump is alleging prosecutorial misconduct. Judge Merchan's like scoffing at this. As a result of these serious allegations, this court gave Alvin Bragg until March 18th to respond to these allegations from Trump. And on March 14th, Alvin Bragg responded and they consented to an adjournment of 30 days, right? We talked about that. That's when we said Alvin Bragg folded. And we were wondering why this was happening. Why did it all of a sudden get postponed? And now he's like agreeing to this, right? Alvin's just like, we're going to trial immediately. But all of a sudden, an adjournment. Okay, why? And we were speculating. I have no inside knowledge, of course, but it's good cop, bad cop routine. Alvin's like, we're going to trial. DOJ's like, your case is crap, don't. So they dump a bunch of stuff on his desk and he's, oh no, I've got a discovery problem. Okay, I don't really want to adjourn 30 days, but I'm forced to because the DOJ put this on me. Oh no, I guess we'll wait 30 days. So we were mocking the whole thing and wondering what was going on here. Like, why now? By the way, this is like a 2016 case, okay? This is Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. Why did they wait until the election year of 2024 to bring this? And there's strong arguments. We are still yet to see what the so-called felony is that ultimately justifies the extension of the statute of limitations that keeps this case ripe in the first place. So he says, we're consenting to an adjournment of 30 days. That's Alvin Bragg. So the judge is giving us the background. He says, okay. Now the court relied relied on these filings, which were filed by officers of the court, that's by you attorneys, and we agreed to a prompt hearing. And the trial is scheduled to begin today, says the judge, and it was adjourned until April 15th, and we set today's hearing. Now, the court also requested all the correspondence with the Southern District of New York, and the court received that affirmation of Todd Blanche. And Todd's affirmation went far afield. And the court, by the way, has also examined the hundreds of pages filed, and the court is of the opinion that there really are not significant questions of facts to even be resolved here today. They're just like, what are we even doing here? So, okay, I got your motions. I've read everything. I don't even know what we're here for. Seems pretty simple to me. The judge asks the lawyers, is there anything else I should consider? Is there anything else I missed? Trump's defense says, Your Honor, yeah, we communicated with the Southern District of New York. That's the feds. Okay, so Alvin is the state. We'll call him the city. And the feds. Trump's defense says, we communicated with the feds on March 20th, 5 days ago, seeking information. I mean, what do you guys have, right? Because you guys dropped a bunch of stuff on Alvin's desk. So now we want to go to the feds and see what they got. So we were seeking information for them. Like, okay, what else do you got? Apparently you have this stuff. Would be nice if we had it since our client is a defendant on trial starting, today. They have said they are coming to provide information about Miss Clifford. That's Stormy Daniels. So Trump's defense saying, yeah, they got more stuff coming about Stormy. And the judge cuts him off and says, well, I don't think that's related to today's hearing, but thank you for that. Okay, when did you request those documents? And today's hearing is really about the Michael Cohen documents, right? Wheelbarrow full of Cohen stuff that Alvin got. And Cohen is their key witness, the guy who's already been convicted of perjury once before and is alleged to have committed perjury again by a federal judge like 3 months ago. Star witness for Alvin. So in addition to Cohen dump, we're now going to have a Stormy dump too. And the judge, I don't care about the Stormy dump. Shut up about that. When did you request those documents? They're not related. On March 20th, we requested them from the New York DA from Bragg earlier, but from the Southern District of New York only on March 20th. And Bragg's lawyer says, we agree. I mean, those Stormy Daniel records are not related, says Bragg's lawyer. And the judge says, okay, well, I'm considering that then too. Says, well, I did have an opportunity, this is the judge, to review the documents like all of, I wish I had a bit more time. But for Trump, your request was made in January for those original documents. Why didn't you bring this to my attention at the February hearing, huh? Well, the process was ongoing, says Trump's defense. The request hadn't been granted yet. I don't know what we would have said to the court at that time. And so I can apologize. Judge says, hey, it's just a question, okay? I don't need an explanation. You did not bring it up, but you argued then for a delay. And he said, we can give you multiple reasons to argue for delay on that day, Judge. We gave you multiple, like over in the middle of an election is another one, We didn't think that the document issue would be persuasive to the court then. That's why we didn't bring it up. In other words, if we would have brought it up back then to you and said, Judge, they're dragging their feet on discovery. They have documents that we need to do our job. Quit your whining. They'll get it to you soon enough, right? So in other words, Judge, we didn't think you'd care. Judge says, okay, for both parties, this is for both of you now, you received the Michael Cohen documents by March 15th, right? And how many were relevant to this case? So again, the DOJ dropped, this big dumpster right on Alvin. How many were relevant to this case? How many documents? Whoa, 300 or so that are largely inculpatory, incriminating. Inculpatory? Bragg's lawyer says yes. The judge says inculpatory. Like they're going to incriminate you? Not exculpatory like exonerate you. So inculpatory. Trump's lawyer says inculpatory? Get the heck out of here. We very much disagree with that, okay? The number of documents that are relevant has grown from last week. We can't ignore bank records from Cohen. Judge Merchan says, if you're talking about the Mueller investigation, it's not relevant to this case. And Trump's lawyer says, but Your Honor, he says, shut up. I decide what is relevant, and I'm not letting that in. Trump's defense says, well, the witness discussed what his role was at the time, and the production included 4,000 emails. The judge says, 4,000 what? Pertaining to what? I don't know. There are 2,300 attachments we're still going through. We only got these a week ago, and we're scheduled for trial like today, as you know. Says, Judge, I can give you examples on all these documents, but we have not reviewed all the attachments or the multimedia files because we just got them a week ago. Says, well, I don't care. I need more information from you guys. What's in the files if you're so concerned about them? Trump's defense says, okay, Your Honor, it's about Cohen's roles as President Trump's personal attorney. Okay, these are emails we'd never seen before. Some we can say are not relevant, sure, but we cannot just take the people's word for this as to the 300. We're just going to trust Alvin Bragg? No. Some of the documents are thousands of pages long. They're banking information, okay? Internal communication among banking staff. Judge says, how many documents are relevant to this case? Trump says, thousands, Your Honor, thousands. Okay, 2,000, 20,000, 100 million thousand? I need to know. Consider how much time. Bragg's lawyer, not Bragg apparently, probably sitting back there, next to Tish with his shoes off like she was. The March 15th production says the government, it was 91,000 pages. 56,000 were records from Sterling Bank, and Sterling Bank had nothing to do with this case. And another 35,000 of these, they came from First Republic. And so the government continues saying the First Republic records are all about shell companies that were set up in connection with Stormy, and so they are inculpatory. Trump's defense says, Your Honor, they talked at length about the Access Hollywood tape and the 302s. As for the banking information, okay, we need to look at all that. They told about the other stuff, but they haven't said anything about other stuff. Trump's defense says there are records of Mr. Cohen still claiming to be a Trump org employee. It's Giglio material, and we might raise it on cross. Now, the People's Memo, says the judge, of March 18th says there's a footnote here on your memo. Can you please clarify that? It was about 9 banks. 9 banks. And the government continues, says these were grand jury materials that could only be shared with law enforcement parties. The note was intending to say that we did not acknowledge the documents are relevant. And the judge looks over at Bragg and says, okay, well, Trump is saying that you're actively suppressing discoveries. What do you say to that? Well, it were preparing a witness, no new information, so no memorialization or disclosure. He said, well, they cite a day that Cohen was filmed entering your office. They say that Cohen entered your office, and they write that Michael Cohen also went on a podcast, and he was talking about documents like this one that came from your office. So that's where they're saying there's some corruption here, that Bragg is like meeting with Michael Cohen in his office and then going on podcasts. And so the government lawyer says, well, that was a binder of publicly available materials. Okay, so that binder is not discoverable, so they shouldn't have gotten a copy of that anyways. And the judge said, well, it said the defense and the Southern District of New York. So defense motion was saying that their team, the defense and the feds, were trying for 7 days to schedule a call with you. Did it take that long? Trump's lawyer interjects and says, no, Your Honor, sorry, there were 2 separate calls. So the judge is trying to pin down, when these things got discovered, who's calling who, when were meetings scheduled to transfer the documents, how much time do you need to review the documents that were transferred. It's kind of hard to follow, as you can tell, but he's just trying to, pin down into what ultimately happened with this discovery. Do you have a meeting? How long did it take? Did it take that long? Why did it take 7 days? Okay. Judge continues. Is there any authority under the law that requires Alvin Bragg to obtain this information from the feds? So now Trump's people are saying, look, we've been prejudiced, okay? We're at a disadvantage. We've got trials scheduled like tomorrow. You have just apparently received all this discovery. They say that it's, 300 pages that are inculpatory. We say we don't even know. We got to look at everything. We're not taking their word for it, that only these 300 documents matter and that there's nothing exculpatory in there. We need this and this and this. So they say because Bragg did not give them the discovery, there has been a material harm to them. There's prejudice and the case should be postponed or, ultimately dismissed. So he says, okay, well, you say that Bragg had a duty to give you some documents. Is there any authority under the law to require that? Trump's defense says, yes, under the law, they are required to get information that is not necessarily under their custody. So even though it's not in their Manila file folder, they should go get it from the feds. It seems you allege that there's another type of violation here. And do you have some case law on this? And Trump's lawyer says, no, Your Honor, I don't have a case where you created a hack prosecution against the former president, 10 years later. No, I don't have a case. Judge says, well, that is disconcerting. Given your allegations about Bragg's misconduct, and I'm somehow complicit in their misconduct, and you don't even have a citation to this, says the judge, looking at Trump's attorney. Not even one fake citation like Michael Cohen had? Call him. He knows where to get citations. Just use Google Bard, super search engine AI. Judge continues, and I don't want to hear about emails or phone calls, okay? Now here's my final question, and he's blown his nose. Disgusting, Judge. Excuse me, I apologize, he says. Give him a break. The allegation is that the people did not gather the info from the U.S. Attorney's Office. So the judge is saying, okay, the defense is saying you had a duty to go get it. So are you saying that there was knowing withholding, like they did something intentionally to try to deviate your access to the discovery? Trump's defense says, Your Honor, there were requests from the defense, I guess, all the way back to 2019. Then there was a big meeting. The DA told the Southern District, we're going to come back and ask for information. SDNY never said no. So the people ask and they get, right? So he gets cut off. They knew all the way back in 2019, 5 years ago, that there was some material that they wanted. Judge Juan says, well, why did you wait until 2 months before trial to bring this up? And he says, well, that's because we were going through the already 11 million pages of discovery that's already been provided to us. That's why. Yeah, because we already have like 15 Washington monuments full of copy paper, okay? And someone did the math on that. It's not a joke. You were in that office for 13 years, says the judge. You knew enough to ask. Oh gosh, these judges! So the judge is now making it the defense's burden to make sure the prosecution does their job. Watch. Judge Mercan, why did you wait until 2 months before going to trial to bring this up, that you don't have this discovery? Which, by the way, is a tactical maneuver, right? Nope, they didn't disclose any of this evidence, therefore they can't use it. It is precluded. Thanks. Why did you wait? Because it's a tactical maneuver? And anyways, Trump's lawyer says, well, also because we were already going through the 11 million pages pages of discovery that was already provided. And he says to Trump's lawyer, who was probably a prosecutor, he says, you were in that office as a prosecutor for 13 years, so you knew enough to ask for it, right? The defense lawyer needs to call the prosecutor. Excuse me, hey, lazy bum, what are you doing? Put your food down. Listen, we need some discovery. You should do your job here so that I can't help my client, right? I'm going to serve your interests and not my client's. Great. Trump's lawyer says, perfect. It's not our job. That's why. The judge says it's not the DA's job. Says, well, you could have requested it in June and you could have gotten it. He says there's a broader obligation of the people, Your Honor, more than just looking around their office, just checking for the files. Hey, do you have any files for Trump? Bragg's like, no, check thoroughly, nothing in there. There's a broader question, says Trump's defense, more than just look around their office and just say, hey, thanks, feds. Judge says to Trump's defense, did you review the people's exhibits? Of course. Yeah, there's 30,000 emails. They were from search warrants. The people could have asked for them. They were already working with the feds, and the regulations are complicated in all this. We had to establish that we had already subpoenaed Mr. Cohen, and there's no way to know if a request last summer would have even yielded this. So we didn't know what the people would do. This time, the Southern District of New York took 5 days to even respond, and the judge cuts them off. So how did the communications between Manhattan Bragg and the feds start? Your papers are misleading. How did communications between the state and the feds, between Bragg and the feds start? And he jumps in, he says, the people did not obstruct you. That's just not what happened. They didn't obstruct you. Like, they didn't stop you from going and getting it. They didn't go and get it, but they didn't stop you from going and getting it. Defense says, Your Honor, they had not asked for SDNY, the feds, for a single piece of paper. They should have told the SDNY, hey, give us some information. And he says, well, they did pretty much. And the Alvin says, Your Honor, short of suing the federal government, I don't know what we could have done, right? So Alvin Bragg's like, well, I don't know how we would have gotten it anyways. Even if they told us to go get it, I don't know what we could have done. Like, if the feds aren't going to give it to us, then we're not going to get it. Trump's defense says, come on, Your Honor. There were multiple communications back and forth, okay? They say they had no obligation, but that's just wrong. They do. They're the government. They're the prosecutors. They can't just, oops, I looked, it's not there. Judge says, all right, pipe down, everybody. This is a pattern, I see. I hear information and then I hear your interpretation. He's looking at Trump, and they're different. What's with this? I hear information like reality, then I hear from you, and we're so far apart, and they're just different. So we're going to take a short break, says the judge. Let's take 45 minutes. Looks a surprise here, right? I was like, what? We just started. It's like an hour. We've been here for like an hour, like 30 minutes. What are you talking about? We're just getting warmed up here. They're back. 45 minutes later, it's 12:09. Judge walks in. All rise. Again, here you go, Judge. Need another break, Judge? Okay. Please be seated. Okay. Judge says, look, now, I went and talked to someone else who's actually in charge of this case, who's just telling me what to do. And the White House told me. Juan Khan takes the bench. He says, all right, everybody, we're back from our break. The purpose of this hearing was to determine who was to blame and what prejudice is to result from this late disclosure of all this Cohen garbage. He says, I will rule from the bench. I've already decided. This court finds that Bragg and the state is not at fault for the late production of documents. Big surprise, Judge. Thanks. Says the DA's office was diligent and Trump will not suffer any prejudice at all. Which is crazy because it's like a whole nother dump of documents, right? Now, jury selection will proceed in 21 days on April 15th, and it will not conflict with Passover. Okay, so judge says, nope, all that new discovery, you get 21 days. I think even Bragg was agreeing to 30 days, so judge even cuts that short. 30 days from 7 days ago, I guess, is that. Okay, close enough. 21 days, 3 weeks. Boom. Trump's defense says, we've been trying to file a motion about pretrial publicity, Your Honor, and so that is still pending. Bragg's lawyer says, we think it unlikely that adjournment is warranted by pretrial publicity, but if they move for it, we'll respond. I guess we'll respond. The judge says, you're going to file another motion? Why? What's changed? What do we care about your stupid motion, Trump? Trump's lawyer said, well, Your Honor, it's pretty simple here. We collected and we analyzed data, okay? These motions come very close to the trial date. We've looked at the scene here. Trump is running for president. He should not have to sit here for this trial now for 6 weeks, given that Manhattan and Bragg could have filed this case, 3 years ago. Judge says, when can you file that motion? Trump says, today. We'll file it today. It's attached to our pre-motion letter. He says, fine, file it today. Alvin, you have a week to respond. I'll see you all on the 15th of April. We are adjourned. And so another great thread. Okay. Inner City Press does great work. Please go follow him on X. You can see exactly how to do that at Inner City Press. He's got some great books. He does a lot of coverage, turns them into books, sells them on Amazon. He's got a great Substack, and he brings us the goods from inside the courtroom in only the way that Matthew Russell Lee can do it. So check him out. Thank you, Inner City Press, for for the great reporting. Of course, Trump was, pretty irritated about that, but kind of not, right? They're getting the same treatment that we've seen from other New York judges, from Judge Engeron in the Tisch case and from Judge Kaplan in the E. Jean Carroll Bergdorf and Bergdorf's case. So now Trump has come out, and I think he's sort of recognizing, along with many of us, that this is all starting to backfire on them. He is being politically prosecuted, and unfortunately for them, it is showing their partisanship, right? It's showing that they're not interested in justice, and it makes the entire effort kind of a joke. Here is what Trump says about this right after the proceeding ended. Here is Trump out in New York.
It's a great honor to be with you at 40 Wall Street, and we appreciate you have a lot of press outside, and I think we're going to start before a lot of them come in, which frankly always makes me happy. So a lot of things happened today. This is all about election interference. This is all Biden-run things, meaning Biden and his thugs, because I don't know if he knows he's alive. And it's a shame what's happening to our country. This is election interference. They are doing things that have never been done in this country before. We've never had anything like it, certainly not at this level, but we've really had nothing like it that I've been able to find. It does happen a lot in third world countries, banana republics. If you look at what we just left, you have a case which they're dying to get this thing started. The judge cannot go faster. He wants to get it started so badly, and there's tremendous corruption. You have Pomerantz.
And they are all hinging on this case, right? Both Jack Smith's cases are very questionable at this moment. The J6 case is on appeal with the Supreme Court. The Florida classified docs case is going to be another questionable one, right? Whether that gets scheduled before the election or not. We've got all these classified hearings that are being scheduled and delaying things out. We also have immunity issues and other appealable issues like the selective and vindictive prosecution filing that may ultimately dismiss that. Fannie's case is very likely to go up on appeal there in Fulton County, so that's all going to be delayed. This is it. This is the only one they've got. And Trump is about to walk us through a little bit of the history on this that we haven't talked about in quite some time. But remember, before Alvin Bragg even came on this case, this is the zombie case that was being kicked around by the other DA, Cyrus Vance, Mark Pomerantz, and these other guys who basically were leftovers from the 2016 election. And they were saying that they resigned. Like, they were very upset about the decision not to prosecute. They wrote books about this and all this. And then they rectified this case because they're out of other options. It's wild.
Mark Pomerantz, he was Hillary Clinton's lawyer, or Democrat National Committee's lawyer. He worked in Paul Weiss. He walked in and he took over the district attorney's office. Nobody's ever seen anything like that, to prosecute Trump. And then they wouldn't do what he wanted to do, and he goes out and he writes a book long before any decisions were made. He writes a book about it, and the book gets published, and everybody's reading his book. And the judge said there's nothing wrong with that. And if you look at Bragg had a fit over that. Bragg said this trial is now dead. We can't do the trial. Well, that was one of the problems, and the judge
They don't care about any of that.
Allowed that to happen. And you had other instances like Colangelo. Colangelo is a radical left from the DOJ who was put into the state working with Letitia James, and then was put into the district attorney's office to run the trial against Trump. And that was done by Biden and his thugs also, because they can't win an election because of the borders, because of energy prices, because of inflation, because of Afghanistan, the worst and most embarrassing day in the history of our country. He can't win because of Russia, because of all the problems, because of Ukraine being attacked by Russia. And he can't win because of the October 7th attack of Israel, which he should have never allowed to happen. Would have never happened if I were president. Ukraine would have never been attacked if I was president. And you wouldn't have inflation if I was president. We didn't have inflation. So all of these things, so what they do is they do election interference, which is court cases, and let's try and tie him up, and let's take as much of his money as possible. I respect the appellate division for substantially reducing that ridiculous amount of money that was put on by a corrupt judge named Engoron. He ought to be looked at, especially what he did with valuations. He's a fraudulent valuator.
That's true.
Where he values Mar-a-Lago at $18 million, and people say it's worth 50 to 100 times that much, the biggest experts in the business.
And it's funny, all the lefties are now salivating over the potential seizure of Trump's property, which, is looking like that's not going to happen because he is going to post the modified bond, which we'll talk about in a different segment. But they were all screaming, what if we take Trump Tower? How much money would that be? Like, evaluating and valuation of big buildings and real estate's kind of tricky business. So what could it be worth? They're all like debating this. What's it going to be worth? They're like, hello, Trump just did that with the banks and you prosecuted him for that. So you're all going to jail now. Enjoy.
So he ought to be looked at, and James ought to be looked at, because she tried to get him. She's like the puppet master of the judge. And our state, this state, is losing tremendous prestige. It's losing its companies. It's losing its people. They're fleeing, and violent crime is flourishing. And we can't have that. Can't have that. No city should have that. And it's happening in other cities, but not with the lawfare. The lawfare that they're doing is incredible. So they could have done this in the case of the trial that we just left, one of the many that are going. Every single one of them is run by Biden and his thugs. The only way they think they can get elected. And I think so far it's backfiring because the people of this country understand it. It's backfiring.
That's right. It is backfiring. And so all engines are firing to get Trump, but every time they indict him or every time they try to remove him from a ballot, it seems like his polls go up because people understand what's happening. They understand that their justice system is now being taken over by partisan political actors, and that's not what this country is about. It breaks everything. If you don't have a justice system that is legitimate, credible, and believable, everything else falls. So it's kind of an important issue, and we're grateful you're here covering it with us. We, of course, are going to be here covering this one. This is the next most recent trial that is on the calendar. April 15th, we're going to be here covering this. It's looking like there will not be cameras in the courtroom, and so we'll be covering whatever X script threads are out there, doing our best to bring you the day's events. And so thank you for subscribing and joining us and covering all of these cases as we cover them and hitting that like button as well. We also have some great links down in the description below. Thank you for checking out watchingthewatchers.locals.com and becoming a member. That way you can sign up and catch our morning streams, our Saturday shows, and join our after parties when we're done here. We'd love to see you there and right back here on the next one.